Hi, I'm Rick Sandoval. The video you're about to watch contains rare and exciting footage of some very large trout being caught on a fly rod. This is the first video in a series that we will be producing that exclusively deals with catching trophy trout. Every trout fisherman dreams of catching at least one trophy trout their entire lifetime. This video will greatly increase your knowledge and understanding of trophy trout and improve your chances of catching that trophy of a lifetime. Anyone can get lucky and catch at least one trophy trout. But unfortunately for most of us fishermen, that's a once-in-a-lifetime occurrence. As you're about to see, trophy trout can be caught consistently. I've caught thousands of trophy trout, including hundreds over 10 pounds, a 20-pound 2-ounce brown trout, and a 20-plus pound rainbow trout that I caught right here in my home state of Colorado. All of the fishing that I do, including the fishing I do in the video series, is done on public water. This proves that the techniques work and that you too can catch fish like this. These techniques will work on trophy trout anywhere in the world. Trophy trout should be thought of as an entirely different species of fish. You can't approach them the way you approach normal-sized trout. You must appeal to their characteristics, natural instincts, and feeding habits. And you must have the right equipment. Having the necessary tools is standard for any job. Whether your job is carpentry, auto mechanics, drafting, or surgery, if you don't have the proper tools, you can't work. My job is catching trophy trout, and without my essential tools, I couldn't do it with confidence. I depend on my tools just as any other professional depends on theirs. My first tool is my fly rod. I use a 9-foot 7-weight G Loomis IMX. This tool is essential for powerful hook sets, casting accuracy, stealth, and for bringing in fish in a short amount of time. The jaws of a trophy trout can be bone hard, and it takes a fast action rod with lots of backbone to set the hook properly, as more fish are lost at the hook set than all the other reasons combined. Everyone knows that landing fish is half the battle. I've used just about every rod on the market, and in my opinion, the IMX is bar none the best rod for landing fish in a short amount of time. You'll see what I mean in a few minutes. The faster you can land a fish, the greater its chances are for survival after being released. My next tool is my fly reel. There are many good fly reels on the market today, and I use several. This particular fly reel right here is a Martin M8. The reason I chose this fly reel is simply because it's one of the first quality fly reels that I owned, and why not use it for my first video. The necessary components of a good fly reel for trophy trout fishing are an exposed outside rim, a lot of line capacity, and a smooth drag. The exposed outside rim allows me to apply palm pressure and use that for a drag instead of relying on the disc drag that it has right here. By applying palm pressure, I can clamp down tight enough to completely stop the spool, or I can let go and let the fish run as fast as it wants to. I keep my drag setting just loose enough so that my reel doesn't overspin. Even a moderately drag setting is too tight. What will happen is sometimes the fish can run faster than your reel can let it out, even if your drag is set moderately tight. That'll cause your leader to stretch until it breaks. My drag setting is set just tight enough so that my spool doesn't overspin, and this reel also holds 200 yards of 12-pound backing. Leaders are all one-piece, non-tapered leaders. The best leader material that I've found for this type of fishing is Stren Magnethin. I trust nothing else, and for the last few years, I've used nothing else. This line is thin, very strong, and surprisingly abrasion resistant, as you will see later on in the video when a 10-pound rainbow wraps my line around a rock. Depending on the water depth, I use 6, 8, or 10-pound Magnethin. For this entire video, I use a 10-foot leader of 10-pound Magnethin. This is a very, very important tool. Some people feel that the color of your fly line is a factor in determining your success as a fisherman. In my opinion, it doesn't really matter. I prefer to use a weight-forward floating Jim Teeny fly line. I feel that Jim Teeny fly lines are much easier to cast and much easier to handle, and they also mend easier. Be sure to take good care of your fly lines. If you take good care of your fly line and clean them and keep them dressed, They will last you for years to come. Another tool which is an absolute must for trophy trout fishing is a good pair of polarized glasses. Polarized glasses allow me to see into the water by removing surface glare. By being able to see into the water, I can actually spot fish, locate fish, and detect strikes by watching the fish's body movements. As you will notice in the video, I never use a strike indicator. In my opinion, strike indicators tend to spook fish, and they also take your eyes away from the fish. The best strike indicator is the fish. And last but not least, my landing net. This is just as important of a tool as all the rest. I use a Walker landing net. This is the float model. It's 30 inches long and the basket measures 12 inches by 18 inches. I like this net especially because it's got the soft mesh basket. It stretches and it'll hold a large fish, and it is also good on the scales and fins of the fish. Well, that about does it for tools. Let's go catch some fish. I have just spotted a large male rainbow. I'm using a number 10 black peacock-bodied woolly booger. About 20 inches above the fly, I have placed 2 BB-size split shots for weight. The fly is tied unweighted. I will be dead drifting this woolly booger and watching the fish for the strike. This fish does not appear to be actively feeding, but that does not mean we can't catch it. Big males are very territorial and become irritated easily. If all my casts are precise and the fish is not spooked, the fish will attack the woolly bugger and attempt to kill it because it's invading the trout's space. When a fish strikes out of aggression, it seldom holds the fly in its mouth for more than 1 second. A strike indicator would be no help in this situation. Had I not been watching the fish and anticipating the strike, I would not have known when to set the hook, and I would not have caught this fish. Set the hook hard and more than one time. I always keep pressure on the fish. If the fish is not pulling you, you should be pulling the fish. Whenever you're walking downstream with a fish, you should take advantage and crank in as much line as you can. Don't be afraid to really horse the fish. You can put a lot of pressure on him with 8-pound magnitude. Try to net the fish head first instead of tail first. It's just a lot easier. As you can see, the net completely swallows the fish. I carry a certified chatillon scale in my vest to weigh my catches. This beautiful fish weighed 11 pounds even. Approaching a large trout is usually where most fishermen make their first mistake. Large trout are cagey and very in tune to their surroundings. Always stay out of the river as much as possible and walk with extreme caution. First, look for unusual movement on the water surface. Then look into the water for shades of red, movement, or anything that stands out or looks different than the river bottom. When you spot a fish, watch it for a few minutes. Then carefully approach it. Take very soft steps. Cast from a comfortable position. Try not to make too many false casts. Try to shake off the buck fever and the butterflies. Then make your cast. Cast your fly so that it drifts toward the fish with no drag. Place your fly 10 to 30 feet in front of the fish, depending on the water depth. Make your cast so that when your fly drifts past the fish, it's at eye level or below the fish. Also, let your fly drift at least 10 feet past the fish before recasting. Many times, a fish will turn around and attack the fly after the fly is drifted past. Land the fish as soon as possible. This fish was 9 pounds, and it also took the number 10 black peacock woolly bugger. I always use my hemostats to debarb my hooks. This makes for easier hook sets and is less damaging to the mouth of the fish. Thank you, fish. I'll catch you later. I've waited a few minutes and a group of big fish have moved into the same place. When most people spook a fish away, they tend to want to walk away as well. If you just hang around and wait a few minutes, about 5 minutes to 10 minutes later the fish usually come back. When there are a group of fish together, they automatically become greedy, and you can usually expect a strike in the first few casts. With this particular fish, I measured my cast between the fish and a rock across the river, and one of them grabbed my fly on the second cast. This one also took the number 10 black peacock woolly bugger. As you can see, I have control over the fish. By moving into the river behind the fish and applying downstream pressure, the fish always stays above me. By moving my fly rod from side to side, the fish is prevented from swimming off in its own direction. When the fish is in front of you, lift straight up on the rod. This will bring the fish's head to the surface, and the flow of the water will usually push the head right into the net. When you gain full control of a fish by keeping it upstream, it will tire much more quickly because it is forced to fight both you and the current of the river. As you can see, the fish will be ready to swim off as soon as you get it out of the net. They aren't usually too exhausted, but more defeated by the battle. When I caught this fish, I was actually casting to another fish way down below it. But as soon as my fly hit the water, the 6-pounder came out of nowhere and grabbed my fly. It immediately bolted upstream, turned around, and swam straight for a big rock. I was able to keep her out of there, and my G. Loomis made short work of her. You can see how my net dwarfs this 6-pound fish. Many times when fishermen, including myself, are looking for fish in a river, we forget to look at the water near our feet. Oftentimes we overlook fish that are right in front of us. Not so in this case though. I spotted this big rainbow hugging the bank right on my side of the river. On the second cast, she sipped the fly and I set the hook, causing a violent series of head shakes and a long downstream battle. This fish also took the number 10 black woolly bugger, but as you will see later, she also destroyed it. A fish this large can tire to the point of complete exhaustion if you are not careful. It took about 5 long minutes to land this fish, and she was tired. She weighed 12 pounds. If you tire a fish to this point, always take as long as it takes to revive the fish. Gently rock the fish back and forth under the water. This forces water through their gills. This gives them oxygen. Don't release the fish until it voluntarily pulls away from you. Large fish get a buildup of lactic acid in their blood if they are overplayed, and it will surely kill them if they are not properly revived. That's why it's important to land them as soon as possible and revive them if they become tired. Always make sure the fish is able to swim off on its own, and always release them in slower or slack water. This fish was my personal favorite catch on the video, and I landed several, more than twice its size. The reason is, it gave me the fight of its life. I'd bet that this fish will grow to be a monster. It also took the woolly bugger. I had to try my hardest just to land this bad boy. My arm was killing me by the time I finally landed him. He bent my 7-weight all the way to the cork. That's not an easy thing to do, friends. This fish was with a group of fish, sitting behind a large boulder. It jumped on my fly as soon as it hit the water. I set the hook, and for the next few minutes it was an all-out tug-of-war. The fish almost won. Although he was only 5 pounds, he fought like a 15-pounder. He gets the Player of the Day award. He didn't even have to be revived. He just bolted right off into the water. I'd like to see him again when he gets to be a 20-pounder. This is where the Stren Magnethin really shows its worth. Also, this is a good example of a situation where all of those practice casts in the front yard pays off. The bank above me is covered with snow and is too high for me to approach the fish for an effective cast, so I was forced to make my cast from about 50 feet below them. The fish are about 15 feet from the bank. The dilemma? How do I get the dead drift to the fish without dropping my line right on their backs? I decided to use a very difficult cast that I learned by watching the masterful Lefty Cray. It took me about 3 months of practicing every day to master this cast. When done properly, my fly line travels about 50 feet, or wherever I want it to. Then it takes a 90-degree turn, either to the left or to the right. In this case, my fly line traveled about 50 feet and then turned to the left, dropping my fly right in front of the fish and my fly line about 10 feet to the side of the fish. I was able to get a good dead drift without my fly line being seen or landing on the fish, even though I was directly below the fish. After I set the hook, the fish went downstream and wrapped my leader around a rock, fraying but not breaking it. I was able to use a quick roll cast, which is very difficult to do when you have a 10-pound fish pulling on the other end, to pop the fly line over the rock and eventually land the fish on the downstream side. This is why you need to use the right tools for the job. Having the right rod helped me to make a difficult cast, which hooked the fish. Using the right line prevented the fish from breaking me off. Keep in mind, all of the fish in the footage you see are on different sections of the river. Contrary to popular belief, monster-sized fish are all around us. Here again, the 90-degree cast proves to be effective. I was casting to what appeared to be a 10-pound male when all of a sudden my line was pulled sideways. That's when I set the hook. From out of nowhere, a 4-pound male ran down my fly and made a meal of it. I brought the fish to my net quickly and had a heck of a time getting my fly out of its mouth. The hook penetrated right through the maxillary bone. The fish was safely released and it quickly disappeared into the river. This angle shows a properly mended cast and a long dead drift, followed by a good look at the fish dipping to grab the fly. I set the hook and the fish erupted from the surface, only to spit the fly out and laugh at me. Notice the upstream bend in the fly line as it drifts toward the fish. This is essential for a drag-free drift. This keeps the fly downstream from the fly line, which is where it needs to be for a proper dead drift. Here's what happens when all of the necessary elements are joined together. I approached the fish carefully and did not spook it. By using my glasses, I spotted the fish and I could see that the fish was feeding. Trophy trout are not as selective as many people believe them to be. The fact is, they're very opportunistic and will often try something they've never even seen before. For this fish, I used a number 12 nuclear glow bug. A peach-colored caddis-shaped body with a fluorescent red head and rib and a white veil. Here again, casting practice pays off on the river. The right fly rod got the fish directly to my net, and the right leader kept the fish attached to my fly line. This was a powerful fish, and it took over 8 minutes to land it. The big male rainbow measured out to be 30 inches and weighed just over 13 pounds. Remember to revive your fish and use as much time as is needed to do it right. Before we close, I would like to say a few words about the sport of fishing. As anglers, we have a responsibility to protect and preserve our natural resources. Trout are a very important part of our lives, our economy, and our heritage. If you're someone like me who cares about trout and trout populations and preserving our natural resources, please consider becoming a member of Trout Unlimited. All you have to do is care about trout. You don't even have to be a fisherman. Inside your video, you should have found a membership application to Trout Unlimited. Read it, fill it out, and send it in. If you didn't find a membership application in your video cover, or you have a friend who'd like to join Trout Unlimited, call the 1-800 number on your screen. I've committed 1% of all proceeds of this video to Trout Unlimited. If there were no more trout, I'd be out of a job. And more important than that, we'd be robbed of one of our country's most wonderful species. Trout Unlimited is a non-profit organization that does make a difference. See you on the river. I'm Sandoval. Before we close, I would like to say a few words about the sport of fishing.
What are those words, Rick? Tell me, what are the hell are those words?
Oh,
Rick?
all right.
Okay.